Welcome, Lucy. Very happy to see you here with us and to talk to you and interview. So I'm Sergey. I'm a co-founder of CCIFF. That's the we are partner festival of the National Canadian Film Day to screen your film. That's our 10th edition, and great to have you here with us. So we have Winda.
Yes, hello, Lucy. It's a pleasure to have you joining us today. My name is Winda. I've been with CCIFF for 6 years, and I'm a project manager at CCIFF.
Hi, and I'm Asmati Shaks, and actually for this 10th year, I'm serving as the executive director, which is exciting, and we're also honored to be working with Real Canada on this to co-host the National Canadian Film Day and to showcase Canadian films. So I'm very happy to introduce you, Lucy, uh, award-winning actress, director from Nunavut. You're here to talk to us about 2019's Tia and Piujuq. And Lucy, feel free to briefly introduce yourself to our viewers. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm Lucy Tulugarjuk, writer and co-writer, director, and actress in Tia and Piujuq.
Great. So it was really interesting seeing the this film, Tia and Piujuq, and I was curious, what inspired the story? Was there a moment that sparked sort of your interest in it?
Yes, co-writers Marie-Hélène Cusino and Sam Cohn Cusino and we wrote the story together. Marie-Hélène started the story in Montreal, and then I added the parts in Igloolik and the supernatural beings and imaginations of what a young girl would go through. Um, I guess from my memories when I was a young girl living off the land with my parents during the spring and summer, I used to imagine seeing either animation or film of our supernatural beings in our lands that I would hear from my parents or at Inuktitut classes in school.
Yeah, I noticed that also the film blends sort of with this Inuit type of mythology, if I guess you'd call it, something like that, with displacement. So how did that fusion come about?
During that time, Canada was inviting immigrants to come in from um, Tia's land. And so once we learned Tia's family landed to Montreal in February, it was important for me to cast a young girl who actually lived the experience of being in a war zone. And as far as I can remember from my childhood, Inuit have always been welcoming to settlers, people coming into our lands. And so when we were writing the story and learning that Tia was coming in, we reached out to her parents, and her uncle interpreted for us to see if she would be interested to cast for Tia's role. And because her English was freshly new and she was learning French first, we were using three languages to communicate, actually four, in her own language, in my language of Inuktitut, English and French,
Wow,
in Montreal shoots and in Igloolik shoots,
That's interesting.
combining
Yeah.
our culture and someone coming into our country for the first time. How did my parents or grandparents interact with settlers when they came to the Arctic back in the day? From what I remember and my recollection of my mother and father telling me, Inuit were welcoming and they made sure that these newcomers were welcomed and had food to eat and clothings to wear so that they don't die out in the Arctic. It's always been a survival and working together in Inuit culture. So I wanted to bring that into the modern world where Inuk is welcoming a newcomer. In this case, it's Tia. And how the portal came, I used to imagine going through portal and traveling somewhere out far. And so when this came, I put those imaginations that I used to have as a kid to a script.
It's
Right. So
nice.
it sounds like you worked a lot with the Inuit communities in Igloolik as well, or
I grew up first 5 years of my life in Igloolik, and from 5 to 12, we moved to a place called Sanerayak, which is just an hour and a half by snowmobile from Igloolik. And when my parents passed away, my little sister and I moved back to Igloolik. And that's rest of my teenage years were in Igloolik.
were there some cultural elements that you felt like you really wanted to communicate, some cultural responsibilities? And
Yes. Um, my aunt Madeline Ivalu, who plays the grandmother in the role, I would ask her, am I correct if I remember correctly? Is this the Kalupiluk, which is the sea creatures that snatches children? I remember that story from my childhood. I guess we were asked not to be too close to this shoreline when the ice was shifting. And so my mother would say, make sure the kalupilok doesn't get you. And so we would be far enough from the shoreline. But if there was an adult, we would be okay. That I wanted to put that in because I think every child in my age group and up have heard of kalupilok. So I wanted to bring that to the younger generation. And I've also heard of Kanaluk. In English, it's often translated to Sedna, where a woman's her fingers were chopped off and drowned. And the sea mammals felt sorry for her. And so they made her a leader of the sea. And we call her Kanaluk, or different regions may say Takanaluk or Nuliayuk, depending on the region and or village they're coming from. But it's usually the same sea leader that comes from our legends of Inuit mythology. So those two are from the sea that in our beliefs and or customs I've heard from my childhood, and I wanted to bring it to youth and children. And also the Tareksuk, the being that lives off the land, looks like us and moves like us, but is another being that um, selects which human can see. And they live in another dimension. Maybe English call it sixth sense or eighth sense, whatever it may be, but we call it tareksip. Thank you.
so, regarding the Syrian communities, were you able to work with them a little bit on this as well, since there's this blending of these two different girls from different cultures?
No, we wrote the story completely, and then once the story was completed, we would work with Tia's uncle, who was able to speak French and English, and we would confirm, is this accurate when we say um, Tia is having nightmare? She's waking up and she's startled from a bomb but we hear it's the construction workers outside the Montreal.
Mhm.
That yes, that was accurate. Is it accurate if we show a clip of buildings being bombed in her dream? Yes, that's accurate. So that way we were able to confirm that whatever image or Tia was going to have a nightmare or memory of were accurate to a child her age who has seen it and lived it. Because personally, I've never been there and I don't know. And I did not want to base it on guessing, but on facts. And so it was important to us as co-writers that what we were putting on screen was accurate and respectful. And that's how we worked with the script.
Yeah, that was really interesting. The Syrian shots, some of those, were those filmed at a specific location in Canada, or was it some other way of shooting the Syrian content?
We bought rights to have the a clipped.
Ah,
Maria
okay.
got permission and bought the rights to have a clip of that certain scene.
And regarding shooting in Nunavut, because I saw these beautiful drone shots, I was wondering what that process was like.
It was interesting. I wanted it to be a bit spiritual. And I remember, I don't know if anyone will believe this, but I remember feeling like leaving my body at one point and such a light feeling and like traveling in the air. And when I saw a drone, I was like, we need that. We need that scene where we see Tia, where a spirit is watching her. It feels like a spirit is watching her. And we see the whole landscape. And so those were the feelings of what it would be if you were able to have that access of flying from your physical being into the something.
Was there any particular challenges with the production regarding this?
Yes, the wind was a challenge at times because it was often windy, so we hear the microphone on the wind sometimes. So when there was too much wind, we would take a pause, memorize our lines, or practice our scene movements. Or another challenge was quads going by, driving by. We would, because the four-wheelers are loud, even when they're far, you hear them for quite a long time and then they have to pass you. And so we would pause about 10, 15 minutes each time there was a quad coming in, and it would interfere our actors because we would say, okay, cut, there's a quad coming in. They would be so focused, 10 years olds being so focused in their role, and then cut, we distract them and okay, let's get in there again and start that role. So that was a bit of a challenge. And so when my father asked me, how was your shoot? I said, there's quads coming in every day. So he went on the local radio in my hometown and asked the drivers to drive the other direction so that they stop interrupting us. And that was respected. I truly appreciated that. The local people did participate in our hometown. And so we were able to finish our shoot within 10 days in Igloolik.
And you mentioned working with the children. So I'm one of the actresses was your daughter, is that correct?
Yes, Piujuq, who is Nuvia, she's my youngest daughter. I did not cast her. Marie-Hélène and Sam did, and I supported her. It was her decision, and she was interested, and so she got the role.
And so what
Mm.
was the experience like working with these children together? Did you find that it was interesting working in that setup.
It was. At first, they were both quite shy. And we had to get them comfortable. We had to get used to Tia, her language or her body language, because she was also quite shy. And then we had to respect her shyness and ask that people that were not needed on set to be in a separate room so that when we are shooting, we have a closed set and it's private so that the girls can feel comfortable. Until Tia was comfortable enough and she was happy, and that's when other people will be able to be there, such as a hair or makeup or costume. They were able to be present physically on site. Otherwise, we would ask them, can you please wait at the cabin while we shoot? We'll call you when we need you. And when Tia and Nuvia were comfortable, then we would ask them, can you please bring the costume for the next scene? And they would be present. So it was always making sure that the girls were comfortable.
I wanted to ask you about the animation because I found that very interesting. Was there a designer that you worked with to create the animation, and was there a theme related to how you draw that contrast between the animation and the real time video?
Because it was hard to put in a budget of a woman falling into the sea. Our sea is so cold. It's impossible to do that. To shoot with, well, for expecting a person to be in the water for 1 hour is too much. So I asked my sister Jermaine Alnatoyok if she could be my illustrator. She's the eldest sister in our family. And so we worked with her, and Takut Productions assisted us with um, the animation part, and we were able to make that work. When the grandmother is telling the story of Sedna, we have my sister's drawings as a animation.
Wonderful. So I was curious, how was the film received when you'd released it?
In my hometown, I would love to share that it was fascinating to see. Um, I was hoping to see at least 20 people. The gym was packed. It was great to see such support from our local homes, adults, elders, youth, children. I remember stepping out of the space where we were airing it, and I was trying to count tickets because we were going to do a draw. And this little girl kept coming in and out and interrupting the doorway. So I said, it's either you are inside or you have to be outside because the door is opening it and it's interrupting the light. And she goes, I'm scared the kalupilok might get me, but I want to see what's about to happen. So she can relate to her culture that these supernatural beings are not just what she's hearing from her grandmother, but they're actually on screen. And when I presented to other Inuit communities, they were like, oh, finally we have some kalupilok on screen, or Sedna on screen, or Takiksuk on screen. So it was great to see motivation and support that Inuit legends were being put on screen in a children's film. All my life, I hoped to see that when I was young. So when it came to my opportunity to bring in a story, what did I want to bring? Supernatural beings, legends. And so that was my first chance, and that's what I brought in. And it showed, and it really made an impact on children, Inuit children especially, that the stories that they heard were on screen, which was so important.
So I'm curious, what's next for you as a filmmaker? Is there anything interesting coming up that you'd like to discuss?
As a filmmaker, I'm working on an animation slash live. It's a 10-part series. Again, it relates to supernatural beings, tarik suite. I strongly believe that when Inuit were colonized, they were so brainwashed about our own culture and well being that some of the Inuit rather not talk about supernatural beings or shamanism. But I grew up around that. It was normal for my uncles or my father to have an interview from anthropologist Bernard Saladin. He would come to my father's or uncle to ask about shamanism or Tarek suite. And so I grew up around it. It was okay for me to ask questions with my aunties and my late Panikuluk, Susan Avinga, and Madeline Ivalu, my aunt. They were the people that I'd often go to say, am I correct? If I remember this correctly, is that accurate? They would give me feedback. So for my, uh, how do I say it in English? If I say it in ineptitude first, I may find the English word.
Sure.
Inulia piqusivut kangunangiman iliqusivut sangiyungman pitaqainauyaqtuq pitaqainauyarniarlunilu. So when I asked my uncle, George Kapianak, is there shamans in our community? That was in early 1990s. He was about 80 years old at the time, and he responded, there has always been shamanism, and there is always going to be as long as the earth orbit. So it was important for me to say Inuit culture and beliefs are as important as any other ethnic group's beliefs. We were so brainwashed that they were all devil's worshippers, but they're not. We never even heard of devil until missionaries came in. So for me, it was important to remind Inuit at a younger generation, it's okay to be Inuk. It's okay to believe that these Tarek suites exists and that shamanism is real. Because for so many, since 1921 at least, Inuit have always been shamanism is not good. It's devil's worshiper. It's not good for you. Stop doing drum dancing. Stop throat singing. So throat singing recently came back. Drum dancing has become a norm again. For about 80 years, Inuit were strongly pushed to stop. And for me, it was my way of saying, hey, my culture is my culture. My identity is Inuit, and that's okay. I'm Inuk, and I have the right to believe my ancestor stories. And I have the right to share those stories with my children and grandchildren. So I turned it into a film.
Yeah, Lucy, thank you very much. It's really, it seems the mythology is really, really central piece, and I'm glad you're putting this all on screen for everybody to tell what it is like in a modern interpretations. So I think that's great, and the fact that you have this welcoming international component to it, that your culture is how it's like.
Yeah, it was a pleasure hearing your perspective on how you created the film, especially regarding the mythology aspect and being able to present your culture in a way that is respectful and also not shame-based. Yeah, so thank you so much, and we're really looking forward to showcasing your film during our screening. And yes, thanks again for talking with us this morning as well.
Very nice talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing Tia and Piujuq and selecting it to screen in Montreal again.
Thank you.